Question: what are you a fan of? Is it a movie, a book, a TV show, a music group, a sports team, or maybe something less conventional? I'm Regan.
And I'm Christian. We've spent over 10 years working in the customer service and entertainment industries. It's this experience which leads us to believe that everyone has a compelling, personal connection to the things that they are a fan of.
And we're here to uncover the secret fandoms of the Gulf Coast's VIPs. Join us as we talk with passionate fans about what they love. On this episode of Fantastic People,
of course, the pandemic added to that and the stress of that and things of that nature. And our marriage is good, so anybody listening to this, we're not in trouble, but just a lot as a family. Mm-hmm. And I looked forward to Friday night just to get away for 4 or 5 hours. And my kids look forward to that. Mm-hmm. And I think my wife looked forward to that. Mm-hmm. Hey, it's just been so helpful to have an outlet from life and everything that's been going on. And we've been hit left and right as a family over the past 6 months that has just been tough. And there's a lot going on, still going on. But as the pandemic winds down and things are getting back to normal and summer is getting back to normal and things of that nature, we're getting better. But racing was the only thing, because we didn't stop racing. We stayed open. And I'm very thankful for that during the pandemic, because the little normalcy we lost, I was able to at least keep that one thing in our family and for our kids and to enjoy. So that's been, the past year has been very important.
We are joined by Robbie Harvey. Robbie was born and raised in Pensacola, Florida, where he has been part of many entertainment projects during his career on the Gulf Coast. He's been the announcer for Pensacola State College basketball, the former Pensacola Pelicans, USA Boxing, and currently Five Flags Speedway. He's worked for Blab TV, WSRE, and is a former DJ. Robbie has won 5 Telly Awards and was nominated for 2 Emmy Awards. He created the viral NAS Heart, viral images from Hurricane Michael in Panama City, and recently has gone viral on TikTok under the name The Race Announcer. Today, he discusses how his love for automobile racing helped his family get through some of the toughest times of their lives. This episode of Fantastic People is sponsored by Hellcat Hangar in Pensacola, Florida. Hellcat Hangar's venture is to build a thriving network of individuals and opportunities centered around the production arts and media. They strive to provide exceptional service as a production studio, valuable insight and education, and to enrich the overall industry across the Gulf Coast. They open their doors as a business, a venue, and as a community event center, but in all manners, their doors are open to cultivate a culture of togetherness. To join the Hellcat Hangar community or reserve a time for your event, you can find them online at hellcathangar.com or call 850-341-7403. Robbie, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Glad to have you.
Thank y'all for having me.
We appreciate it.
So you grew up in Pensacola?
Yeah, I did. Local. I'm a local. I only lived out of here when I went to college for a couple of years, but this is my hometown. And to be honest, you come from I don't know about you guys, but you come from a place where like you hate it. And as a teenager, you're like, God, I can't wait to get out of this place. And then I don't know what happened, but now I don't want to ever leave. I love this place, really. Now, I guess it's maybe because I have a family, but yeah, this is my hometown.
It's a hot topic for me right now.
for both of us. Yeah. No, it is though, and I'll agree with that. I think growing up, I went to Tate High School, and
go Aggies. We haven't had an Aggie shout out in a while.
We haven't, but I wasn't proud of that. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I was so different.
Yeah,
and I've said that on here before. But
you didn't drive a truck.
Didn't drive a truck. Didn't fish. Didn't hunt. None of that stuff. So I wanted to leave. I was like, if this is what Pensacola is like out in Cantonment, I don't want any part of it when I'm in control of that. But then I grew to love the town, and I think what it is, to your point, you said, I don't know what it is. Pensacola has changed a lot, especially downtown Pensacola. Yeah. The scene here is so much different than it was even 5 or 10 years ago with the Wahoos and with just revitalization like crazy. And so it's actually a place to be proud of, and there's a lot that's offered here that the stuff that I don't know about you, Robbie, but the stuff that I was looking for to leave and find, I'm finding it. But on a smaller scale.
And we'll get into it, but that was the same thing. I was wanting to get out of here so I could accomplish my dreams. And here I am. I'm at home. I'm accomplishing all the dreams that I had as a kid. I was opposite. I went to Pensacola High School. So it's the complete opposite of farmers and Cantonment.
Yeah.
And it was a very diverse crowd at Pensacola High, but I loved it. I loved my high school. I still stay in contact. We have a high school group on Facebook that we still talk with all.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's so much fun. But yeah, I'm just like you. I love this place, and it's going to have to take a lot to get me out of Pensacola now.
Yeah, I did move away, about as far away as a person can move. I moved to Alaska and when I was in the military, and still ended up back in Pensacola again with the family. But it's one of those things that's definitely perspective changes with wife and kids. And are there things that I would like to see that are more beneficial for my kids? Sure, I would. But it's still a place that I feel safe and confident and comfortable raising a family at and being a part of this community.
You mentioned going off to do your dreams, and so you're here, and there's 2 things that you're really involved in that you do that I think we can talk about. Number 1, you're the media director at Marcus Point Baptist Church and also track announcer for Five Flags Speedway. So tell us about that. How does that line up with your dreams and how you use your skills?
Yeah, so I had really 3 dreams as a kid going into high school and things of that nature. 1, to be an announcer. I've always had a love for announcing and calling sports. 2, I wanted to do media. So film and photography and things of that nature. And 3, I wanted to be a meteorologist.
Wow.
Okay.
So
that was
2 of 3.
Yeah.
But I still get excited when like hurricanes come and things that I still follow. So I went to school in Orlando for film and television, got my degree in film and television.
Cool.
Before I went to school, in high school, I was actually a DJ. So I've DJ'd every high school prom there is in this area. Wow. And it was amazing. It was so much fun. So I got my announcing fixed. And then when I came back, I got a job at a local TV station, just being a part-time camera guy. And I became an announcer. I was announcer for the Pelicans that are now the Wahoos. I was announcer for high school football. I was announcer for Pensacola State basketball. I was announcer for, what else? I've done boxing. I've done hockey. I did some announcing for the Ice Pilots, and now I've been announcing for Five Flags Speedway for 16 years now. I'm in my 16th season there.
Wow.
What are maybe some of the challenges it comes to announcing like different sports and different events and venues?
Oh, man, I don't know. I would say family, because if it wasn't for my family, I'd still be doing all of that stuff. But after a year into my marriage, my wife finally said, okay, you're going to have to quit something. So I gave up baseball and I gave up basketball once we had kids. A lot of games for both of us. And I stopped doing football on TV and stuff. Life got too busy. But she said, don't give up everything. Pick one. Stick with it. So I stuck with racing. I've been a fan of racing since I was a kid. We talked about dreams and like getting out of Pensacola. The one thing that I realized after I graduated college, I can accomplish my dreams at home. And so I moved back home. A lot of my classmates stayed in Orlando to do things, work for like Disney and Universal, because that's all that is down there. So I decided to come home and try to accomplish the things here, and I've been able to do that. I'm able to create videos at working at the church and do what I love there, and then I'm able to accomplish announcing Five Flags, and then I'm able to do side gigs like photography and things of that nature and all that. So I've been able to accomplish everything I've wanted to accomplish here.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So in terms of racing, when did you first experience it, that racetrack?
Yeah, I went to the 1995 Die Hard 500 at Talladega when I was 12 years old, and that was my first in-person race, and I was kind of hooked from there. Seeing some racing legends race in that race. And now those same legends come and visit me at the racetrack.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of people don't realize in Pensacola just how big Five Flags Speedway is. I can be announcing a race and walks in some sort of legend that just sits right next to me to watch the race with me, and it's so cool. So a lot of the people that I saw in my first race as a 12-year-old kid, I've got to hang out with at the racetrack now as an announcer, and it's been pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah, what is it that what hooked you about racing that really just...
I don't know. I'm a runner now, so I enjoy running, even though I'm not very good at it. I get mad every time I enter a race and lose. So there's always been something about racing that I love, just the competitiveness of it. But like I said, I enter these races. I probably enter 5 or 6 races a year, and I lose every single one of them. I don't even come close. But every time I get mad that I lose, and I'm like, why did I lose? And it's just something that I love about racing.
You think, I remember it this way, and very well could be wrong. I don't consider myself an expert. But the late 90s, it really feels like the heyday of racing.
It was. And a lot of people who don't understand racing, there's really 2 levels of racing. There's what you on TV and NASCAR, and then there's short track racing. And what I'm really involved in is short track racing. And short track racing is just as popular as NASCAR.
Yeah.
Even though you don't see it on network television like you do NASCAR, short track racing is huge. And at the Snowball Derby that we have in December here in Pensacola, we'll have close to 15,000 in attendance. And that's only because we sell out. There's no more space. But we'll have tens of thousands watching on pay-per-view, and it's pretty amazing.
Wow. What do you think is, for people at home, what would be some key differences? Obviously, short track seems like it's just length of track, but maybe what are some other differences a person might have between what they see on TV?
It's mostly about the driver in short track racing. NASCAR is more about the money. So if you got a lot of money, you can get a ride in NASCAR, and it doesn't matter how talented you are. It's not. It's just well known. That's just the facts of it. Short track racing is more about the driver. If you race in short track racing, it's more because of talent than it is money.
Talk about that experience with your kids, going to the racetrack and being something that you experienced at a young age, and now getting to do that with them. What's that mean to you?
It's really cool. Like, my kid comes to every race, and he loves it. You can start to hear him. We'll be watching something on television, a sporting event, and he'll start to announce it at around the age that I started announcing. So it's pretty cool to hear that. So it's fun to experience it with them, but if in regards to, do they go tell their friends that their dad? No, my kids could care less. It's not one of those, hey, aren't you proud of your dad? And they'll say, no, I'm not proud of you, Dad. And so I'm like, okay, well, thanks a lot then. But it's fun they get this to meet a lot of the heroes that they watch on TV because of my position, and that's really neat to watch your son interact with these big time race car drivers each and every year. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
How much have you ever been exposed to racing, Regan?
Okay, so my exposure to racing is two key things that stick out. Number one, and I don't know why I'll never forget this. One of my mother's really good friends, probably one of her best friends at the time. So this is mid to late 90s. We would go over to her house a lot, and it must have been an afternoon, Saturday afternoon. I don't know, when does racing come on? And it was NASCAR, and she was really into it, and I was like, I don't really understand.
Bunch of left turns.
She's y'all sit down and shut up, and she's listening to the announcer and the whole deal. And I got into it, so I think that's probably where I learned the name Jeff Gordon, and I think it was a big race that he was doing, and so that was very familiar. And so mid to late 90s, everybody was talking about Jeff Gordon back then, so I knew that. Then fast forward till 2002, maybe 2003, on PlayStation 2, there was a NASCAR racing game. That was the epitome of racing games at that time. Not Need for Speed, not any of those other games. For whatever reason, it was the NASCAR game. All my friends had it. I had it. And I played countless hours on that game. Made my own car and made my own career and got really good at it. And I started to take in some of the concepts. And obviously, it's a video game, so it's not the same. But That was probably, that's it. That's my exposure.
Yeah.
The replacement of that NASCAR game now is what they call iRacing. It's a legitimate simulator.
Oh, wow.
So you can buy your own racing rig and get iRacing. And what's cool about it is it's got every racetrack you can think of on there. So even Five Flags is on there.
Oh, wow.
So there's legit racing leagues, and even some drivers who have been very successful on this simulator are now
Moved
racing
into
in NASCAR.
Wow.
And so
That's
it's
cool.
really cool.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
Right. That's cool, though.
But it's really
That's super
cool.
cool.
And so the week of the Snowball Derby, they actually have a virtual Snowball Derby that thousands of people watch.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. My wife hasn't allowed that check to be written yet. So, but I hope to have a racing rig one day where I could do it.
That is really interesting.
That's pretty cool.
I don't know
that
I've never thought about how
regular sports.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah, one, I've never really thought about how esports affects racing, automobile racing. Makes sense though, why we would see that. But two, the evolution from that, because think about it this way. I worked at a fighter squadron. I spent time in a fighter simulator.
Yeah.
I'm not certified to fly a jet by any means, but I would, right next to me is a pilot, and him and I are flying together, and he's going from that simulator to get in a jet.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's gotten that's how detailed it is in racing now. This iRacing is so detailed. Many of the drivers will practice Five Flags before coming to Five Flags through the simulator. It's unbelievable.
Wow. Yeah. So going back to the NASCAR game really quick, I spent most of the time, if not half the time, going the wrong way to see how high I could launch and how many turns. Yeah, but that was mostly what I did. I took it serious about half the time.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't. It's one of those things that I actually still follow NASCAR at a very minute level. My father-in-law super into it, and certainly something for him and I to discuss every week. But I was really into it growing up. Again, the late 90s, I really relate to NASCAR being, I want to say it was coined the most popular sport in the world at the time.
It was.
And so Dale Jarrett, Jeff Gordon, Earnhardt Jr. coming on, I remember that period really well. But it definitely, when the world started to turn on it, I did. And
It's one of those. And also, if you're ever offered to go to a race, it's a different experience in person than it is on TV.
Yeah. I went to Atlanta Motor Speedway once.
My wife, she hates watching it on television. But if she'll legitimately say, hey, I want to go to Daytona. Can we go to Daytona and watch a race? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. Yeah. So it's a whole different world.
Yeah. And that's... I would definitely go though. I've heard that. I've heard it's a totally different. It's loud. It's an experience by itself. I've been to Five Flags one time. Tate sang the national anthem, and so I stuck around to see what it was all about.
That was a different world back then, though.
I'm sure
that racetrack has changed so much.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
It's probably around the last time I went. I wasn't there the night Tate sang the national anthem, but it was probably 2004, 2005.
That's pretty close.
Yeah. I want to go. Every year, again, my father-in-law's birthday is in October, and every year I'm buying him tickets to the Snowball Derby this year. And I'm a bad son-in-law.
You should.
I have yet to do it.
He would love it.
He would love it. He really would.
Man, it's an experience.
Robbie, can you tell us a little bit about maybe when and how and what are some motivators to try maybe a different form of like short track racing or something like that? What's the appeal there? You said a lot about the driver, but visually, what is a person seeing, and what's like a sales pitch for it? Because I've never given it a shot besides going to Five Flags once.
These guys in short track racing get a little more physical.
Oh.
So they'll take you out if you do something wrong. And so NASCAR is not quite like that anymore. It used to be, but not anymore. So there's a lot of storylines. Matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, driver got taken out on the last turn. And so the guy that got taken out, he came down pit road and got out of his car and they went at it. Wow. That's a little more of short track racing. Yeah. It's a lot more emotional for these guys because they don't have millions of dollars to waste. They work on their own cars. They spend the week working on their own cars. And so that race means everything to them. And so to be taken out or what we call dumped or things of that nature, that's what makes short track racing fun. When it's your blood, sweat, and tears and your money on the line, it's a little more emotional. So that's what makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like the appeal a lot of people have with college football versus professional football.
It is.
And also, I just throwing this out there. I know we briefly talked about maybe talking about wrestling, but using the term dump reminds me. Is there like a NASCAR equivalent to wrestling vernacular? Is there like a heel and turn and?
Yeah. There's some vocabulary and things of that nature, and we have nicknames for some drivers. There's one driver. His name is Stephen Nasi, and he's known to be a nice guy, but he's also known to not be a nice guy. So we say, what are we going to see, Nasi or classy Nasi, and things of that nature.
That's
so
awesome.
There's some things like that. And then, man, when something happens in the short track world, I think one video from the Derby that we had this past year is up to a couple million views, just from what I was talking about, a very emotional moment where a car got wrecked. And when something like that happens in short track racing, man, everybody's talking, and it's really cool to watch. Where in NASCAR, you don't really see a lot of that.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like there's a pretty tight-knit community within that.
Yeah, it is, and everybody knows everybody. And what's interesting is I talked about the legends that I get to see. They treat you just like a regular person. So when we, at the Snowball Derby, you talked about Jeff Gordon, things. At the Snowball Derby, I remember walking through the pits and running into Rusty Wallace, and he's just a regular guy. They treat you just like a normal person. You can walk up, have a conversation with them, unlike any other sport. All these athletes think they're higher than everybody, where racing's not quite like that.
And it sounds like, too, because of that community aspect, and maybe as an organization, everybody's pretty down to earth. If I understand correctly, in a lot of sports, you have gatekeepers and you have people that kind of like, this is where the big players hang out.
Yeah.
Nobody else can go in there.
Yeah.
But you can literally walk in the pit.
Yep.
And they're walking in there. There's nobody saying, whoa, don't stop and talk.
Yeah. And we have celebrities that come and watch races. I don't think he came, but I remember I was sitting in a booth and my boss came up to me and said, hey, just FYI, Vince Vaughn is supposed to come tonight. Wow. I was like, why is Vince Vaughn coming he goes, he just called us and said he's in town. He wants to come hang out, so he may come up and talk with you. I said, okay. It's I don't know if he ever came, but we get that all the time. I think Tim McGraw came one time.
Where was Vince Vaughn? And I'm just,
And I think Faith Hill came one time. At least that's what they said on social media or something. So we get celebrities all the time that come just watch the race. They don't tell anybody. It's pretty cool.
That is cool. I do remember Vince Vaughn being here because there were like some pictures of him like maybe just at a bar or club or something.
Oh, yeah.
People,
Maybe I do.
Yeah.
He had one too many and couldn't get over there.
Yeah,
that's probably
he got caught up.
Because we don't start till 8, and he was probably already.
He was having a good time already.
I used to teach drums at Pine Forest High School and West Florida High School. I've talked about it a lot on the podcast, so sorry for everyone who's heard it a million times. But when you're rehearsing late on a Friday night, it's 8 or 9 o'clock. You can definitely hear the races going. Mm-hmm. That's probably been my most exposure, honestly, the last few years.
That's true. I do remember that. How has racing maybe helped you over the years and getting through some things?
It just gives you an outlet of regular life. My wife and I, we've been going through a lot, and this is public knowledge, but we've been going through a lot as a family over the past 6 months. Of course, the pandemic added to that and the stress of that and things of that nature. And our marriage is good. So anybody listening to this, we're not in trouble, but just a lot as a family. And I looked forward to Friday night just to get away for 4 or 5 hours. And my kids look forward to that. And I think my wife looked forward to that. Hey, it's just been so helpful to have an outlet from life and everything that's been going on. And we've been hit left and right as a family over the past 6 months that has just been tough. And there's a lot going on, still going on. But as the pandemic winds down and things are getting back to normal and summer is getting back to normal and things of that nature, we're getting better. But racing was the only thing, because we didn't stop racing. We stayed open. And I'm very thankful for that during the pandemic, because the little normalcy we lost, I was able to at least keep that one thing in our family and for our kids and to enjoy. So that's been, the past year has been very important.
I think the thing you mentioned right there, outlet.
Yeah.
It's so important for us because you can be the most successful person. Everything can be working out. And again, like how you said, me and my wife are fine. My family's fine. All of that can be true. We're making it work every day, but yet things are still wearing on us and we're still battling, and it's so important to have that thing where you're just like, this right here, this is mine and you can't really touch it. And it's my reprieve from everything else. And I think that's one of the things we really like getting the heart out of the podcast is we want to hear about that thing with people that's for 4 or 5 hours out of the week. The rest of that stuff kind of just wanes away, and I can enjoy this time.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not anti-COVID because I had COVID, and it sucked. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And I'm not anti-mask, and I'm not anti-vax, but I think a lot of people who were pro-lockdown and things, they disregarded the mental health of things. Of when you just take away everything, that's going to cause a lot of problems, and it caused a lot of problems in our family. My wife stayed locked down with our kids at the very beginning for 8 weeks straight. They didn't leave the house for 8 weeks straight. And then I started noticing behavioral changes with my kids at about week 7 or so, and I finally said, we're going to stop this. We're going to stop this. We got to get back to some normalcy here. And so I completely understand both sides. And so racing, I'm so thankful that they stayed going. And I think they recognized it too. We got lit up media-wise for staying open. Yeah. But it was personal to me. And I'm like, you guys don't understand. This too is life and death. Marriages are going to fall apart if we stay on this path. And so
there definitely was a good balance, you know.
Yeah. And that was the struggle. How do you find a balance? Because you do. Every time we had a sniffle, I let every family member know, hey, my son's got a sniffle. Y'all can come around if you want, or if you're not comfortable with that, then stay away. So we were extra cautious, and we always let people know, and we've isolated. My wife and I counted one day. We've missed like a total of 60 days of work from quarantining because one had a fever or a child had a cough
or exposure to somebody else.
Just all that stuff. So.
Well, thankfully we're starting to put all that behind.
I'm over it.
As we sit in this very close quarters.
I had bad. It was bad. I was real sick for 3 weeks, and I'm thankful to be over it.
Yeah. In terms of racing being that normalcy and the things that you're going through, is there a moment where that kind of clicked for you?
Yeah, so the Snowball Derby in December, we were really at the height of the pandemic of infections, and we decided we're going to sell this thing out. There was going to be no restrictions. We did safety protocols. We scanned everybody's temperature coming into the track and things of that nature. We did those things, but we decided, hey, we're just going to move forward like it's normal. And even I was nervous about it. At the end of it, though, I didn't realize how much I needed it and and I was shocked at how many people came. It was one of our quickest sellouts in history. Wow. And most of our crowd comes from out of town. It's not local. And so that was proof to me, just talking to people, that they needed it too. And they were like, thank y'all for doing this. And they knew the beating we were taking from the public that chose not to come. That was when it clicked for me how important it was just for people. They just needed something to do. And I'm glad that we were happy to provide it. And from what I understand, they contact traced and tried to keep track with people if anyone got sick. Wow. And from what I'm told, nobody got sick from the event.
It's amazing. I can say that I have been to a live sporting event. I've been to 2 since the pandemic. And I went to a Braves game like a little over a month ago, and then I went to the Hawks were in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I went to a Hawks game.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm from Atlanta. It is, it can't even describe it. Like live sports is already, like we're talking about earlier, like a race live is different than a race on TV. And that
were you nervous going?
No, I was very much, when I got the vaccine, I was like, all right, baby, let's do it. Like I was full steam ahead after that. Yeah, shake and bake. There's a reference. And so I was not nervous, but being in there, it was the game Trae Young got hurt, unfortunately, but the Hawks were winning by a good bit until Trae got hurt. And being in that building with 40,000 other people, again, my hometown team is putting a whooping on the Bucks. Every time Giannis went up to do a free throw, the entire stadium started counting because Giannis is a notorious long
We've been
free
watching
throw.
My son.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And it was just, I can't describe it. Like being back there in that moment. I try to go to a Braves game every year, and just being around other people and sharing this love and watching this competitive sport. Like, I enjoyed pandemic sports for the experience, getting to watch 60 baseball games with not a soul in the audience. It's a once in a lifetime
It's
thing.
been interesting.
It's been interesting. They did a good job with that.
Yeah, basketball did the bubble, and it worked fairly well, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's back.
Yeah, and I think the Snowball Derby was the first sporting event sold out in the state of Florida. I think it was.
That sounds
I think
right.
it was the largest gathering of a crowd.
It's probably not.
It was in December.
It's probably not difficult to do when there's nothing else going on.
That's what I'm saying. So I think it was one of the first sporting events that said, hey, we're going full steam ahead.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like you. I love going to Florida State football. And we went to a couple last year, but they had the social distancing going on. It just wasn't the same. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, I miss everybody. So I'm excited this year because they are allowing full capacity. So by the time this podcast comes out, I'm about
football season.
I'm about a week away from going to the FSU
awesome.
Notre Dame game. So I'm pretty excited.
So
I hope they're good this year.
Yeah, gosh. Don't we all? Everyone in this room hopes so.
Yeah.
It's been a rough few years. We always think there's room for improvement and critique. So what are some advice you have for racing or for racing fans? Some things that you think some work needs to be done on?
Racing fans are the best. They're also the worst. They're awful. If there's something to complain about, and racing fans are going to complain about it.
Yeah.
Even media members. I've had media members just refuse to ever talk to me because I will call them out on their nonsense articles. It's just because I love racing. But sometimes I feel like media members they're just anxious to find something to complain about, which I guess it doesn't make any difference from politics to sport, whatever. So that's it. That's really it. But racing is, man, it's so much fun. And I love to hear. One of my favorite things to do is just sit with old timers and hear stories about racing. And that's a lot of fun. But yeah, racing fans are the best, but the worst at the same time. And if we could just back off of just complaining all the time.
Yeah, especially I know at the high level of NASCAR, there's been so many changes over, especially the last decade.
Yeah.
And there's been a very vocal crowd that probably hasn't been the most accepting of those changes. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm probably partially in that because I'd be watching and my father will be explaining to me how it's different. And I'm like, that doesn't even make any sense. Yeah. He's like, they changed it 2 years ago. And
you're not plugged in enough to see it.
I'm not plugged in enough to get it. And I also, again, it's something I relate to my childhood. So I know I'm guilty of that, but I also recognize.
I'm a wait and see person.
Yeah.
I'll gladly say, after it's done, that was a bad idea.
Yeah.
In terms of the culture and where the fans come from, is it primarily southeastern in nature in terms of the people that are watching and the people that are going to racing events? Or?
No, it's not. So fans in different parts of the country are fans of different types of racing. So there's a racing class called modifieds. In the Northeast, modifieds are huge. If you say modifieds are racing in the Northeast, they'll bring 10,000 fans. You say modifieds are racing here in the South, it'll bring 2,000 fans.
Right.
In the Midwest, in like Indiana and things, dirt racing is huge. Sprint dirt racing. So you say that, they'll bring 10,000 fans. Down here, super late model racing is big.
Okay.
So we've got a super late model race coming up in a couple weeks. We'll bring 5,000-6,000 fans.
Okay.
That's how it works throughout the country, and then the West Coast is the same thing. There is like a divide. East of the Mississippi and west of the Mississippi is like two different worlds. But yeah, racing is popular, especially short track racing all around the country.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that. And like NASCAR and stuff, that's going to be national because of all the different
NASCAR is national, and said it's almost two different sports. There's a lot of racing fans that come to Five Flags that don't watch NASCAR. And I'm sure it's like that throughout the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that. And maybe it's because we grew up close to Talladega.
You grew up here in the South where you know, it's popular. Especially, again, you grew up in the heyday of like NASCAR, so it definitely gets that kind of stigma.
No, that's good.
The follow-up to that is, what do you think the future looks like? Where do you see racing in 5 to 10 years?
With NASCAR, I don't know. Yeah,
that's a great.
With short track racing, the future is bright.
Probably is a better future for the local events versus a big mega conglomerate.
Yeah, and with the Snowball Derby, we have a lot of big time racing names that come to that race that are in short track and NASCAR, and it's like the two worlds collide, and that's the attraction. And it's rare that a NASCAR driver wins the Snowball Derby, but there are a couple of them, like Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott, that do win the Snowball Derby. So it's fun, and it's like a little competition that attracts the racing fans. But short track racing, it's a fun time to be a part of it. I'm 16 years into it. I plan on doing at least 20 and maybe 30. So we'll see. But the 16 years have flown by quickly. And just in that short time, the popularity of short track racing has exploded.
Yeah.
So it's huge now, where when I started, the best thing you could get in coverage was blogging. Now, short track, there's at least 4 different networks that I know of that cover short track racing, from NBC Sports to CBS now covers short track racing to MAV TV to Speed 51. All these television networks now cover short track racing because they see a bright future in it.
Even physically, we could see here, we live where Five Flags is, even the expansion of...
Yeah. And there's probably more coming in the future because that track is so old. They started racing at that track in the mid-50s.
Wow. Well, and it's hard to visualize, too, because we've got the simulation stuff that's already a thing, and that feels very futuristic.
Yeah.
So it's like, where does that go from here?
I don't know. The best thing happening for the simulation stuff was the pandemic. So the pandemic skyrocketed iRacing in popularity. I think as long as short track racing continues to grow, then simulation stuff, because it allows the fans to race on the actual track that they get to go to.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people here locally. They go to Five Flags Speedway who literally go home and race Five Flags at home. You really can't do that in NASCAR world, even though they have some NASCAR tracks. iRacing focuses mostly on short tracks, so that's what's pretty cool.
I wonder, that makes me think about other sports and simulation.
Yeah, I don't think it's the same, though, quite, because you can, depending on how advanced the setup is, like... You
can't be stationary.
It's advanced, and every detail of the racetrack is in iRacing, so no track is the same. It's not the same surface.
Right.
For example, Five Flags will wear out your tires very quickly. Well, in iRacing, it's the same exact thing.
Wow.
Where if they go somewhere else, it's completely different. So you have to set up your car exactly like that. So as long as fans can go to these tracks, I think simulation. And iRacing is big around the world. So there's Formula One over there, mostly popular in England and things of that nature. They cover all that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, it's neat.
Wow.
I will say, last point I'll make on this, to your point, one of the advantages, say, like, when you're in a moving thing, so again, being in a jet simulator, a lot of jet simulators don't move. A lot of people think they're like what you have when you go to the aviation museum. It's not like that, because your mind will recreate the G-force on you. So when I go and I put the accelerator on and then I go into a bank, I feel that bank. And I would imagine probably an automobile simulator does something similar, where you can't really simulate being hit by a 245-pound linebacker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, you're good. You need a room or something.
The Michael Vick experience, if anyone remembers that commercial.
You're on TikTok. Where can tell us about that and where people can follow you real quick, because that's crazy.
When I filled out the form for you guys, I didn't realize I just started the TikTok thing, and I was kind of like, let's see what happens here.
Okay.
I didn't realize that I was going to be successful in it over the past 3 weeks. So I've been doing TikTok for 3 weeks.
Wow.
I'm already at 1.5 million views.
Wow.
And I've 20,000 subscribers already.
Whoa.
And just giving marriage advice. That's all I've been doing.
Yeah.
One of my videos is at, I think, 700,000 views. Another one's at 400,000. There's a couple of them. Anyways, but I've found my rhythm, my footing in TikTok. So it's going well, and apparently I'm doing something right, and I'm getting at a rate of about 5,000-6,000 followers a day.
Whoa!
So it's pretty cool, and my handle is at the race announcer. So my idea was I was just going to announce random life events. That was my idea when I started.
Yeah, like announce it. Yeah.
And then I gave one marriage advice video, and it blew up. I was like, okay, let me do another one. So I did another one, and it blew up. So I've done so many marriage advice videos, and it's popular.
Wow.
So hopefully by the time this podcast comes, hopefully be over 100,000 followers.
Wow.
Things of that
amazing.
nature. But I've only been doing it 3 weeks, and
That's amazing.
I'm at 1.5 million views.
That's amazing.
Well, congrats.
And 170,000 likes or whatever it is. So I don't know. Wow. I don't know TikTok terms. I guess that's decent. From what I'm learning, it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's good.
Well, that's cool.
The race announcer.
The race announcer. That's where they can follow you. Wow. But yeah, Robbie, thank you for doing this.
Y'all.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Fantastic People. Please rate and subscribe wherever you find your podcast. To continue today's discussion, join the free Facebook group, which is Fantastic People Podcast Hangout, and follow us on social media. That's at fantastic_peoplepod on Instagram and at fantasticpeople, no E, on Twitter. We'd like to say thank you to Alex Edmondson for our artwork and Brian Velasquez for our music.